Climate change will not just affect where you live, it will affect how you work, and in some cases, whether your job survives at all. Every job depends on stability, stable weather, stable infrastructure, stable supply chain, stable energy. When climate instability increases, work becomes harder, slower, and more expensive. As a matter of fact, heat exposure research shows productivity drops significantly during extreme heat, especially in outdoor and non-cooled environments. That is not abstract. That is measurable. So let's start with something simple. Heat makes people less productive. We can all agree on that, right? Labor productivity studies show output declines as temperatures exceed certain thresholds, especially in construction, agriculture, and manufacturing. Turns out, human beings are not optimized to work at 45 degrees Celsius weather. Who would have thought? Outdoor labor becomes extremely dangerous. Indoor labor, that requires cooling, and cooling requires energy. Guess what? Energy requires stable infrastructure. You see how this all compounds? Now, take all of that and consolidate into a couple of uncomfortable truths. Uncomfortable truth number one: climate risk is class coded. What do I mean by that? Well, outdoor workers face higher exposure. Informal workers face higher exposure. Low-income workers often lack cooling or flexibility, forcing them to work in harsh conditions despite the extreme weather. Global labor studies consistently show climate exposure disproportionately affects lower income and informal sector workers. But remote work, that protects some people, right? Yes, it does. But heat, it does not negotiate with those that don't have remote work. And what are the consequences? Well, when regions become unstable, workers, just like everyone else, they move. Migration changes labor markets, which directly corresponds to what? New pressure on cities, new competition, new informal economies. Climate migration research indicates environmental stress contributes to internal displacements and economic migration patterns. And this is not just about refugees. This is about a workforce reshaping. So some industries, they remain climate fragile. What might be the examples of climate fragile industries, you might ask? Well, agriculture in drought regions, tourism in heat and wildfire zones, coastal real estate and construction, fossil fuel dependent regions. Economic modeling suggests climate exposure will unevenly impact sectors based on geography and resource dependence. So climate change does not only destroy jobs, but in some way, it does create new ones. In what capacity, you might ask? Well, here's the bender. Climate change is now opening a gateway to jobs in renewable energy, grid modernization, climate adaptation engineering, disaster risk management, urban resilience planning, and cooling efficiency technologies. Energy transition analysis shows large protected job growth in renewable and resilient sectors. So the labor market is by no means collapsing in on itself. It's transforming. But is that all good? And here's the second uncomfortable truth. New jobs do not automatically replace old ones. Skills mismatch, geographics mismatch, education mismatch. These are all factors that cannot be neglected. And some might argue are the biggest hurdle people are going to face when they transition from their current industries to these ones. Workforce transition studies consistently show reskilling gaps during structural economic transitions. So people can't just magically teleport from a coal plant to a solar plant. That's just not how it works. Completely different skills, completely different people necessary for the job at hand. But what does that exactly mean? Well, here's something less discussed. Climate risk changes labor costs. Insurance premiums rise, as we'd already discussed. Health risks rise, and cooling costs rise. And businesses, they tend to calculate all of these costs because all of these are variables that essentially either take away or contribute to the final profit margins at the end of the year. So yes, businesses calculate all of that and they relocate if need be. If you want to understand understand what exactly goes into the intricacies of a business just upping and leaving, check out this video right here. So what does this precisely mean for individuals like you and me? Well, here's the practical truth. Future-proof work means resilience. Resilience like what? Well, climate-resilient infrastructure, energy transition skills, water management, risk analysis, urban systems, supply chain resilience, public health adaptation, all categories that mean resilience. And if you're in any of these, or if you're working towards being a part of any of these, you are actively trying to be a part of future-proof work. The safest careers are increasingly starting to get tied down to stability. If what you're doing can drive stability forward, you're in the right place. So I want you to look at it this way. The workforce is changing. A lot is changing. But for decades, career advice was simple. Just follow opportunity. But now that opportunity is following stability. So the future of work will belong to regions and sectors that can withstand climate volatility. And that changes everything. If you think this video made you rethink the future of what work might be or where these workforces are going to migrate towards, subscribe. This is Noviksgiven. We explain the systems shaping everyday lives far before they break. Or at least we try to. I'll see you in the next one.